Hey guys, Kelade here, back at with another commentary for the war. This one is going to be a defense, so it's going to be a long one because potentially if you win defense, it's a 30-minute fight, right? So the onus is on the defense to kind of keep up their A game for the entire duration of the war. So right there, hit a war horn there and, come down once everybody gets the buffs there. The other thing I do want to note is that I am technically doing siege on this fight, but realistically right now we just have one guy up on there and he just like rotates and does the war horns. If we ever needed to, if we were losing badly to where we would need to get back on the cannons and try to AoE people up, I would go back on the wall, but it doesn't happen here because we end up just kind of killing them here and fighting them. But yeah, just kind of like shooting my arrows into them as much as I can. Initially my goal was to make sure nobody can kind of come up from us from backline. So this guy right here, right, he's trying to get behind us. It's just kind of annoying, right? If somebody's poking at you while you're looking towards the main fight, just make sure I clear that out. So that way, he doesn't bother their healers too much and such. Outside of that, and then sometimes look at the melee if needed. The thing is, like, unless people are going full tank, which I don't think that many people do, at least it's not the meta in our server, right? There's not that many people that are full tanks, especially not the good companies on our server. And I will consider this fight you're seeing to basically be the strongest fight within our server right here. People don't really run full tank anymore. So even for melee, you can see like they don't have shields and stuff. And if they have a shield, some of them just wear it just to have it on the back because they're heavy armor anyways. But yeah, as always, that's something that I always do. The biggest thing for me is listening to callouts, and two is seeing where the gravity wells are. Whenever I see a gravity well, if I have my AoEs up, it's going in the gravity well, whether it's our team or theirs, because even if it's their teams, that they're going to have a few melee that's in there. And if it's our teams, potentially they'll have even more people in there. The good thing that's really, I think, helpful for me, especially like this is a 50-50, right? Is problem with this game is that right now you don't get to like see everybody right away. Like, yeah, there's some people with the red markers above the heads, right? But you gotta imagine there's 50 of those and I don't see 50 in front of us. And we're all fighting on the same point. So when people call out where opponents are, especially like when it's like further in the back than where I am, because you kind of want to be a little bit further back with the bow. It's really easy if they call out where people are, especially where they're gonna be doing their vortexes and all of that stuff and all their CCs. So really makes it easy for us if you have better feedback from your team on where people are, because sometimes you're shooting something that you can't really see. But if I ever see clumps like this, like right there, boom. If I ever see clumps of like 6 people, I'm shooting something in there. A little bit of decent got pulled back. No worries. I think we took out a good amount of them before we died right there. So respawn relatively quickly. The other thing is that the respawn in this game for wars is just like it is in WoW. It's by kind of a batch system, right? So like imagine your spirit healers in WoW. When one person is rezzing, everybody else is on the same timer. So if somebody's dead, they can tell you what everybody else's timer is, right? So that's something that we'll do later in this war too. When we know that the timer is low, sometimes we'll just tell people to stand on the point to help push that progress, knowing that you'll be rezzed, in a few seconds anyways. Now, you do have to go through a loading screen sometimes, and that's always a gamble. So use that with discretion, because you could think, the res is going to be up in 6 seconds. Let me hop on the point, push a progress. If I die, I'll get rezzed. Yeah, but your load screen can also take 15 seconds. So gotta factor that into the cost. But once again, see a group of people, throw that penetrating shot right through as many of them as I can. And there it is. And the other thing is, especially because my current gem is the rallying one where I do more damage on full HP, don't ever be afraid to chug health pots whenever. I mean, usually in wars, you should not be afraid to essentially chug health pots on cooldown, because it's pretty inefficient, especially if you're playing bow, for somebody to heal you on the side. If you get healed, great. But realistically, you're not really going to get a healing circle just for you on the ground, right? It's a pretty big waste of that. And then otherwise, just keep AoEing here. We're kind of listening for calls too. You can see that A is getting attacked and it being pushed a little bit more in B. But we are making sure, and that's one of the things that we didn't want to do, because for us to win this, we took it from the company that's attacking us right now. one of their mistakes was that they over rotated. So that's something that we want to be very careful about not doing. If a team needs help or a base needs help, we try to not oversend people, right? Because you don't want to be in a situation where you send people over there and they barely lose, and then you lose your second point too because you had less people there because you rotated, and bam, you lost 2 bases right away. So I come here, try to help out a little bit, see what's going on over here. Not as much people here, but which does make it easier, right? Because when there's less people, it's very obvious where the enemies are, as opposed to, oh, here's a group of like 80 people in front of me. Guess which 40 are the enemy and which 40 are the friendlies. So here, just trying to pick people off. At this point, my goal still is, if I see a ranged, and usually right now range are still wearing light armor because everybody's trying to push as much DPS as they can, and people on this server still value a lot on the light rolls too, and I think people should. The mobility that gives you is insane, especially if you pair it with something like dexterity base, where you're basically rolling like every other attack. When a range is fighting you, it's really difficult to hit that, right? You basically have to either predict where they're going to roll, or you got to hit scan them. So it looks like they push off of A. I'm just going to rotate back to B. And as I mentioned in the previous video, I mean, my Rapier is literally just used essentially for me to just move around faster. I don't really go in melee, and you definitely don't want to in a war setting to be charging to the point with your Rapier. It's probably not going to work out well for you. So generally don't. I know I rolled just past the guy behind me, but I might turn back and want him on him. Or I probably just ignore him. Nope, I definitely don't turn back. He's just going to be behind me. So, but I see everybody chasing this guy and I try to shoot him a little bit here. That's the other thing I look for too, is outside of the gravity wells, is the Frost Gauntlet. I mean, Frost Gauntlet, I would argue for how much benefit it gives you as a bow user, it's even better. Because yeah, the gravity well pulls them together, but by the time that like either somebody calls it out or you see it, and then your arrow flies, that person is probably already not even in the vortex anymore, or they can already move a little bit. Whereas the ice route from the ice gauntlet is so long that if you see somebody get rooted by that, you can definitely fire an arrow and hit them. Assuming your aim is on point and then your accuracy doesn't mess you up with either. That's another thing that was interesting for me, is that I knew accuracy existed as a perk in the game, but I wasn't really sure how much it would affect how well you aimed. And I feel like some people chalk that up to the game being buggy, but I think that's just part of using a bow or a musket or anything that has accuracy, right? Because there is an accuracy perk. So clearly, accuracy should matter to some extent. The other thing is I'm also just using my skills as much as I can, especially penetrating shot and ring of arrows. Penetrating shot, almost like always, if I can get that on cooldown, I will always use it. There's generally 2 ways to use penetrating shot. One is to try to one-shot somebody. So what you do is you roll, charge up, and heavy auto attack, fire it, and then you instantly do a penetrating shot. Or you just penetrating shot through a group of like 5 people. Hopefully you hit a few of them. You'll do insane damage. There is at one point in this war, I guess we'll see if I catch it. I caught it when I was actually fighting because I was like, this is an insane number. But I crit a guy for like 6.8k, which actually insane when you think about how much damage that is. Unfortunately, I don't think I've been able to one-shot anybody yet, but 2 shots definitely can happen with the bow. The other thing that I try to do is, even if I don't kill anybody, I want to be as annoying as I can, because a lot of times for war, it's really at the end of the day just a numbers game, right? If you have more people on point, you're gonna move the point. Same thing with like how much resources can I take, right? If I can just have more than one person turn and look at me, I already consider that a win, because it should be relatively difficult for them to kill me. The only exception is that if I get caught in CC and I get multiple people on me, but in which case, just still be a positive. And I always try to kind of just keep rotating around the fight as much as I can, just so they have to constantly be aware of threats from all different angles, right? Because right now I'm basically behind their team, right? Because their team comes out of my left. And this is knowing that they have forces at A, which they could technically reinforce. Like I just walked past me, he doesn't care. He's like, you're not a healer. And that's another thing too. Boom, right? I see a healer, target the healer. That's always going to be a huge plus in a war, right? If you know who the healers are, or if you can identify who they are based on the fact that they have a life staff, definitely go for them. As I mentioned, shield doesn't mean anything. I mean, that guy had a shield. One, if you don't equip the shield, it doesn't do anything. And two, a lot of them just equip shields just to look tough, and doesn't really mean much. We're trying to hit this melee as he slowly magnetizes himself forward. This is another thing, right? Just make sure I'm peeling my healers and my mages. This is still, I don't know, maybe by the time you're seeing this, you might have, the patch might have happened where mages get nerfed, but this war is what? Done on 11/16, so no patch yet for November. Mages not nerfed, healers are, whatever strength they are, so if I can peel our mages and our healers as much as I can, even better there, right? And of course, put pressure on their mages and their healers. So, if I do have an opportunity, I'll try to be going on their mages and healers. Healer in this example. It looks like he doesn't care, so I'll hit another healer that looks like there might be a little bit squishier and easier to hit. I just give up on that one. That's the other thing I try to do to help my aim. I think I mentioned in the last video is like I'm not a super FPS player, but I do really enjoy playing the bow in this game. One thing that helps a lot is that try to aim in a way where even if you pick a primary target, if you miss, it'll still hit somebody. So you're at least always doing some type of damage, right? So for example, if I wanted to hit a healer, I'll try to move behind them in a way where even if I miss the healer, it'll maybe hit a mage or maybe hit a melee that's on the other side. That's generally my goal with aiming, is that sometimes if it's like group of 10 people, yeah, just fire in a group of 10 people, that's fine, right? Just put your AoEs in there. But certain cases where I'm trying to hit somebody specifically, I'll pick somebody that's generally crowded with other potentials. So even if I do miss, there's still going to be some, extra damage that goes out. Whereas if I just see that guy on the right on the rock right there, if I just aimed at him and I missed, I mean, there's no way he's hitting anybody else, right? There's nobody even close to him. But sometimes I do get rid of those guys because those guys are a bit annoying. I would maximum just do like 2 arrows there. If I don't 2-shot him, then it's fine. It's just to get them off the point. Generally, if somebody's on a point like that and you hit them with 1 arrow, they move. They're not really going to stay there and take extra arrows. So even just hitting them once or twice, they won't be up there anymore. And this is kind of it's getting intense at this point, right? They're trying to capture all 3 points. Spoiler alert, we do lose A at some point. It might actually just be right now. But I think at this point it's like A was so far gone that we didn't want to go in the situation I mentioned earlier where it's like, oh, we need help at A, let's move somebody to A, and then we lose A as we're running there, and then we lose B too because people moved off, right? That's another thing that we want to make sure that at least for this, B was way more important for us to keep holding, and we didn't want to go down to just 1 base because we know their team really likes that strategy. And I think another thing is based on different team comps, your strategy can be slightly different. Generally, I think the team we're going against does have a little bit more melee that are a little tankier and all in full void bend armor. I think this is the yellow faction has held Everfall and Windsworth for such a long time on a server that even regardless of dupes or not dupes, they've generated so much money just from owning those 2 cities alone that it's actually not out of the realm of imagination that they all have fully crafted armor to where their melees can take a bit more punishment. So they are more likely to just stack people on point, which is what they try to do. I think even their strategy, when they attack, is in the beginning, right? They put everybody in B. They just want to try to stat check us, but luckily it didn't work out here. B also got really, really close there. I mean, that was a little sliver before we push it back. The key is just to, they're going to try to stack on point with all their stuff. Just have your AoEs ready to go and just blast them, right? You just want to kill a few of them, and then once our melees get on point, as long as we have just even 1 more person, right, it'll start pushing in the other direction. I think that piercing shot hit 4 people, all for over 4K. The other thing is, I think if you really wanted to, I think if knowing what team we're going up against, Could you actually run poison shot? You probably could, but it's probably still a little bit DPS pad oriented. Whereas I do feel like this triple shot here does still have more value because it helps you try to secure bursts and kills on one person faster. So I still do believe for a realistic setting where you're trying to win the war and not pad stats, it's probably still better. I am curious, like if they're ever going to add more like healing reduction, and poison arrow would be a great way for them to add more healing reduction. So just rotate it here a little bit because, like I mentioned, I was on the siege team. We don't rotate that much as our team, so it's kind of like whatever we want to do because essentially we just sent 2 DPS. Right here, just helping out this team a little bit. And then once we see that they're about to, are winning or doing well on that point, we can just back off. I mean, the thing is on defense, you don't have to win a point, right? As long as it's a stalemate, you're good to go. Like even if they have less people, they don't have to win. We just have to not lose. That's all you have to do on defense. But you do have to do it for a very long time, for a full 30 minutes. So our goal right now is that if one team can hold it with whatever numbers they have, even if you can't wipe them, totally fine. No need to waste your time trying to just kill 3 people, right? When there's 47 people on the other base. So come back to B. They seem like they really want to get B, so we're just behind all our mages and trying to hit them as much as we can. Just firing arrows through them. So even if I miss the mages, ideally it's hitting the melee. And this is the thing that I was mentioning earlier too, is that like some of this stuff is that like if I have my AoEs, I'll just keep firing into the middle, especially if they're super grouped up like that. Could have paid a little more attention to the mage on the right, but I do think AoE in the middle was the call here because they have so many people stacked up in mid. We want to make sure that one, we either kill their melee or pressure them off to where they have to get out, right? And that's the key, is we just want to keep them off the point, even if we do have to trade some bodies, and that's it's always worth it on defense. Right here is another thing, like we see the death timers, and we're trying to tell out the rest of the team, like, hey, this is how much time is left. If anybody can stand on point and die for it, go ahead. And then the other thing is, when you're fighting on a point like this, the trading kills is so much in the defense's favor, because when I die, I res on regardless of how much loading time is, right? Everybody has loading time problems, but when I die, I res right there, right? When they die, they gotta go res back in the little camp, and it's further away. So if you can trade kills evenly on defense, you're already at an advantage, right? Just because you're gonna respawn faster. Here I got some nice melee and a couple of mages there. Just use the rapier abilities, and I'm out. And they're like, well, this guy's too annoying to deal with. Let me go kill somebody else. And that's that. And that's why I pair up the rapier with the bow. I mean, if I use a spear, then I would have to actually try to kill him. Which takes time away from me pressuring the point, making sure that their melee can't. Once again, just constantly trying to pick people, trying to identify if there's anybody important who I think is strong on their team. And if not, fire your arrow in the group of 5 people. It's gonna hit somebody. And then, of course, the other thing is, as much as I can, right, you do want to make sure you're doing the charge shots. Though sometimes with the bow, sometimes it just takes too long, and I just fire a small shot anyways. But ideally, we get the charge shots in. Right there, I see our melee going back on the back on a bit, just to help him out a little bit, put some more pressure, hit these guys, trying to aim these guys with the trees in my face. Wasn't lucky with the second shots, but we'll get them one day. Push another rain of arrows, just constantly pushing them off. And then I see the gravity well, and you already know, I'm trying to see where are they. Another gravity well happens, piercing shot. Sometimes it takes a bit of skill to fire a piercing shot into a group of 10 people and hit one person. Sometimes you even hit nothing. That's pretty good to fire one arrow into 10 people that pierces and not hit a single person. But another thing here, right? I'm just behind the back line. They literally are just completely ignoring anybody behind them. I think this just comes from also because their team has so many melee that it's hard for them to, have their melees not be on point. And So their melee has to sometimes be in a state of where they're not pressuring our backline as much. So whenever this happens, when they think they're doing well, right? And we get that mage, there it is. When they think they're doing well, they will like stack on point. But then this happens, right? Look at that. Stacked on point all together, ring of arrows, piercing arrows. I mean, together, it is almost 10k damage to people, right? Because you have basically 4 to 5k on the ring of arrows, 4 to 5k on a piercing shot. That can kill people, and it does. So whenever they get confident to where they can stand on point, we just AoE them down again, and then point gets pushed back in our favor. I'm curious how this is going to change after the patch too, because potentially there will be less mages, which means stacking on point will be potentially stronger. Because generally the mage AoE, yeah, it's nice. Oh yeah, also I run out of arrows here, nice. I have 1 arrow left or 2 arrows, so I had to put on another set of orichalcum arrows. That's always fun to be in the middle of war. I did start with 500 arrows, but we've just been fighting so much that I had to reload my arrows there. Luckily I didn't die there. The worst part was that I was reloading arrows and we made the call for people to stand on the point because they were pushing it. And that's what I'm kind of doing right now. Generally, I really don't want to ever be on the point. I'm a light armor user. And also this war, we tested just, hey, they do ignore bow users, dexterity, and a lot of range users. What if we just didn't go 150 con? So I actually have like 116 con, I think, just because my gear had con in it. But I put all my other points in dexterity and an 8 dexterity food. Just to see, right? Because realistically, you're not trying to get hit as a bow user. So if I don't get hit that much, does the 150 con benefit me as much as just putting out a bit more damage and a bit more pressure? Especially early on too. Like, yeah, unfortunately, like I did blow the horn in the beginning of the fight, but like when 2 armies are collapsing to each other, they're relatively grouped up. You put a piercing shot into that, oof, people are dead. Especially if somebody else puts a piercing shot, you can definitely kill somebody if they get hit by both. But it looks like our team is doing good job holding them back. It's actually crazy how fast our his HPs are going up and down. Here it is. We're back up in action. And now actually push the point back a lot. I don't know what that guy doing is in the middle of the point. Like, he's a healer. So I find another healer behind me. I don't know why he's just trying to heal through me, which no, now he has to run away. And that's fine, right? Don't always have to kill the healers. If they're running around in circles, great. And they're not healing. I try to sneak that guy in so bad. I hit 2 shots on him, but the 3rd shot, he was covered by too many people. And I don't think I hit the shot on anybody anyways. Now I'm like, oh, this guy's a healer. At first I was like shield, but I see the little lifestyle animation. So just pressure this guy a little bit, this Giga guy. Whatever I can. I see a mage has turned around to hit me. Perfect. That's what I want to see. Just keep aiming at me, and I'm going to keep ignoring him. And I'm going to bother this mage a little bit, put a little rapier in there, bother that guy, make him go on the rocks. Right, turn back around and back to AoEing the point. Trying to decide if there actually is that many people in there. Not really. I think the ring of arrows maybe hit 1 person. It could have been my Q2. You never know, because ring of arrows time is so long. So I finally see this guy, which we talked about earlier. That guy is squish, right? 1 shot, less than half HP. So I think I don't hit him again, but I should pressure him 1 more time. Because generally what you can do is like if somebody's up there, right? You hit them, they drop that low, they're going to use a health pop. If you hit them again, then they don't have the same option, right? This is actually a different guy. This is a healer. But then the melee tries to go on him, try to help him again, but sometimes you just don't hit. It's all right. I think they're just all dying right there before I even shot an arrow. Those guys were dying real quick. All right. This guy is low HP, but I'm trying to see if I can kill him. Fuck it, the melee's on him. He'll get it. Oh, and then he also has the berserker wig. Right, let's go to point C. Again, using the rapier for mobility. Thought about casing that, but I don't want to waste the effort, and I wasn't gonna get it anyways. I think the other thing that's really good about using the triple shot is that it also gives you better perspective as you're using it on the fight, because it does zoom your camera out a little bit. The first 2 shots are 100% weapon damage. I don't think it actually even buffs it other than just the rate of fire. But it does allow you to see a bigger, wider view while you're using it. So that's always. I think at this point, with 5 minutes left, they're going to try something. They're let's all stack on B wasn't really working, so they tried sending some people on C. Of course, that's also not going to work. I don't think you have enough time. Maybe you could to cap 2 bases and break the walls and go through. I think it might be possible in that time. I don't know. I feel like we did it and it took us 10 minutes and it was hard. I think at 5 minutes at this point, it's kind of GG. Especially as they came to see and they're not really winning. They're being pushed off the point, which is really great, right? That's the other things that, like, if you don't have to find the point, once again, you just care about not losing. So if they're not on the point and they're not pushing progress, that's a win for us. And we can just keep going like this. We don't need to do any further. We don't need to, wipe them at their base. Yeah, constantly just putting out more AoE and damage in the fight. And shooting an arrow between 10 people doesn't hit anybody. Hey, some say that's a miss. Some say that's a skill. So, you know what I mean? Just depends on what sport you're looking at. And yeah, I think at this point, we're generally like, all right, we're kind of chilling. So just AoEing whenever I can. And, sometimes that involves throwing a piercing shot above everybody's heads. I think that maybe they finally caught on. This hammer guy trying to kill me. Wait, he did like no damage. I mean, I only have 116 con. Like, that's all the damage? Full light armor? Well, medium chest, I guess. But I expect, like, when that guy hits me, I should be getting chonked, but not really. So yeah, repose there, get him off of me, poke him a little bit, and then off I go. Because I don't care about fighting him. See that guy right there, 6.8k. I actually think that rounds up to 6.9, but that bow does some damage. The other thing is, right before this war, I did buy a new bow, and it had like 10 or 11% crit damage. Really nice. Because even the other things that, like, I'm not so confident that, like, crit chance, like, I know it's good, but I don't think it's as good for dexterity users as some other people. Because you guys can see, like, throughout this video, how many times I've rolled, right? Every 10 seconds, I get a guaranteed crit. So every 10 seconds, any stat you have that's keen related, that's, crit chance, isn't actually as valuable as you think it is. And I actually think crit damage, on top of, probably more important, though, you can also see I'm using so many abilities that I actually just feel like crit damage. I think you should definitely have that. Now, if you can get crit hit chance and enchanted, great. But I feel like at the minimum, the crit damage is huge. Right? You're going to get guaranteed crits. And then, of course, you can get crit hit chance on your ring, which you should. And I talked about in the last video, right? Keen awareness. It's like, of your jewelries, that's like the only item that can have a real DPS, like super DPS stat in your ring. Of course, you can get like skill perks, but like I mentioned, the bow skill perks are pretty bad, which I guess it could be good. It means your armor selection is, I guess, relatively easy. Because there are classes in the game where, like, oh, if our armor doesn't have this specific perk, then it sucks. But I guess bow doesn't have that problem or that benefit because it doesn't exist. The only thing, right, that could be good is the third shot. Maybe it can be used to try to one-shot somebody. I haven't got a chance to try it, but I feel like maybe that's the value there. Once again, just trying to put myself in a position where nobody can touch me, right? And if they want to come here, it's really out of the way and annoying for them too. They either have to look away from the rest of the group, or if the melee comes, even if it gets me, he has to go super far away. Ice wall there, literally rooted for 1,000 years. Probably dashing. Yeah, I can't dash out of that. But I think we win while I'm still dead. How much time is left? I just love how when you're dead on the screen, you can't do anything. I have no idea how much time is left. Can't really turn your camera. At least let me look at the scoreboard, but they don't even do that. So you're kind of just dead on the ground here. Can't do much. So we're just chilling. But doing well. I think the other strat and the thing that's meta on the server too, by the way, war horns across the board. War horns is definitely meta as a siege engine on our server, and basically you really just need like one person to do it. because one person can just alternate between all of the Warhorns, and as long as nobody on any team is killing a Warhorns, you can literally almost have like 100% uptime, and I think you can have a 100% uptime on Warhorns. And it's super easy if one person's doing it because he knows, which ones he's clicking on, and he knows how often he's been clicking on it. So that makes it also easy. But yeah, a hard, fought victory, Everfall. It's always going to be a situation where we're constantly going to get waged war on. Everybody wants Everfall or Windsworth, right? Those are the big money cities, especially on our server. Everfall is actually a bit more popular because the taxes on Windsworth was raised to incredible levels. Like I even sold my house in Windsworth and I moved to Everfall. But yeah, really great war. Hopefully give you guys some more insight and some gameplay on using a bow. Maybe will be even more prominent after the patch happens. We'll see how the balancing shakes out. Yeah, total damage right there, 1.2 million. But yeah, as always, thank you guys for checking out the video. Feel free to subscribe to see more. Yeah.